They threw her in free with 2 horses. The cowboy didn't know she'd save everything he had. The sun had just begun its slow climb over the horizon, painting the wide plains with soft gold and amber light. Dust rose gently from the dry earth as the cowboy rode his old horse along the fence line, checking for broken posts or stray animals. Life on the ranch was never easy. Every day brought work that demanded strength, patience, and careful attention. The cowboy, a man who had spent most of his life under the open sky, was used to the rhythm of ranch life. Early mornings, long hours, and the quiet hum of nature were all he knew. He liked it that way, predictable, manageable, safe. Yet that morning, something unusual disturbed the calm. As he rounded a familiar bend near the pasture, he noticed 2 horses standing in the open field. They were not supposed to be there. The cowboy blinked in disbelief. Their coats glimmered in the morning sunlight, sleek and strong, and their eyes seemed alert, almost aware of his presence. But what startled him most was that they were not alone. Standing between the horses was a young woman he had never seen before. She looked calm, almost serene, as if she belonged there. Her hair, tied loosely at the back, caught the light in a way that made it seem like it had been painted by the sun itself. Her clothes were simple but practical for the ranch: sturdy boots, jeans that had seen their share of work, and a shirt rolled up at the sleeves. She didn't look scared or nervous. She didn't even flinch when he called out. "Who are you?" the cowboy asked, trying to hide the edge of irritation in his voice. He had never welcomed strangers to his land, and this sudden intrusion felt like a threat to the careful order of his life. The woman looked at him calmly and smiled. "I was sent here," she said simply. Her voice was soft, yet there was a quiet confidence in it. "Sent by who?" he demanded, scanning the horizon, half expecting someone to be hiding behind the trees or fences. But there was no one. It was just her and the 2 horses. "I don't know," she admitted. "I just know these horses needed help and I needed a place to be." The cowboy frowned, unsure whether to trust her words. Strangers often brought problems. That was the way of life on a ranch. People came and went, sometimes with intentions that were less than honorable. He had heard stories of stolen horses, broken fences, and ruined livelihoods. And yet there was something about the calm way she stood there, the way the horses responded to her presence, that made him pause. He dismounted slowly, keeping his eyes on both the horses and the woman. Every step he took was measured, cautious, as if one wrong move could startle the animals or reveal the truth about this mysterious girl. The horses shifted slightly, but they didn't run. They nuzzled her gently, their trust in her obvious and immediate. "Step back," he said finally, his voice firm. "I don't know who you are and I don't know why you're here, but you can't just walk onto someone's property with 2 horses. It's dangerous." She nodded, her hands held out slightly as a sign of peace. "I understand," she said. "But they were lost. I couldn't leave them out there. I don't have anywhere else to go right now." The cowboy studied her. She seemed honest. That was unusual. Most strangers were not, but even with her calm words, his mind raced. He had a lot to lose. The ranch was everything to him, his family's legacy, his livelihood, and his home. He couldn't afford to take risks, no matter how sincere someone seemed. "Fine," he said finally. "You can stay for now, but don't touch anything else. Don't go near the barns or the other animals. I'll decide what happens next." She nodded again, not arguing, and began walking toward the horses. As she approached, she spoke softly to them, murmuring words he didn't understand. The horses responded immediately, lowering their heads and moving closer to her. The cowboy watched, fascinated despite himself. He had worked with horses for years, and he had never seen them respond so quickly to someone new. It was almost magical. The morning passed slowly. The cowboy kept a careful distance, observing her every move. She cleaned the horses' hooves, brushed their coats, and even guided them through some basic exercises in the field. With every action, she showed skill and knowledge that went beyond simple experience. It was as if she had spent years understanding these animals, knowing exactly how to earn their trust and respect. By mid-morning, the first tension had begun to fade. The cowboy realized that the horses were calmer, happier even than they had been before. He couldn't deny that she was helping them, but still he wasn't ready to trust her completely. That would take time. "Name's Jake," he said finally, introducing himself. "I own this ranch." "Nice to meet you, Jake," she replied. "I'm Emily." Emily. A simple name, but there was something in the way she said it. Steady, confident. That suggested she had faced challenges before. He studied her, trying to read her expression, but she gave nothing away. It was as if she had learned long ago that survival depended on keeping a calm exterior. The day wore on, and Emily continued to work with the horses. She fed them, led them through exercises, and even spotted a small injury on one of the horses' legs that the cowboy had missed. He watched her, silent but increasingly impressed. There was something remarkable about her focus and determination. She didn't complain, she didn't rush, and she didn't falter. As the sun climbed higher, the cowboy began to feel a strange sense of relief. The horses were in good hands, and the quiet efficiency with which Emily worked made his job easier. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he could breathe a little. Perhaps this stranger wasn't a threat after all. Perhaps she could be useful. Yet even as he considered this, his instincts told him to remain cautious. Life on the ranch had taught him that people could be unpredictable. Trust had to be earned, and one day of good behavior didn't erase the risk. He decided to keep a close watch, just in case. By late afternoon, the work was done. The horses were calm and tired, the fields were checked, and the fences were secure. Emily looked up at the cowboy, a faint smile on her face. "I think they're ready for the night," she said. Jake nodded slowly, a mixture of respect and caution in his eyes. "Yeah, they are. You did good," he admitted. Emily's smile widened slightly, but she didn't say more. There was no boast, no claim of ownership. She simply moved to help the horses settle down, showing once again that her focus was on the animals and the work, not on herself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Jake felt an unfamiliar sense of anticipation. Something about this day, about the unexpected arrival of Emily and the two horses, had shifted the rhythm of his life. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing: this day was only the beginning. As night fell, Jake went into the house, but he couldn't shake the image of Emily standing in the field, guiding the horses, calm and confident under the fading light. He didn't know it yet, but she had already begun to change his world in ways he could not imagine. And somewhere deep inside, Emily felt it too. She had been thrown into a place she did not know, with challenges she had never expected. But she also felt a spark of purpose. These horses, this ranch, this man, they needed her, and she was ready to rise to the task. The first night passed quietly. The horses slept peacefully, Emily stayed near them, and Jake watched from the doorway, thinking about what tomorrow might bring. The unknown stretched before them like the endless plains, full of possibility and danger. And in that quiet night, a story was beginning. A story of trust, courage, and the surprising ways that life can bring people together when they least expect it. Little did Jake know, the woman he had met today, the stranger in the field, would soon prove to be far more than he had ever imagined. She would become a part of his life, a part of the ranch, and perhaps the reason everything he had worked for could survive the challenges that lay ahead. The wind whispered through the trees, the stars began to shine, and the first chapter of their journey quietly closed, ready to open again with the rising sun, bringing new trials, new lessons, and a bond that would grow stronger with every passing day. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting long shadows across the wide-open ranch. Jake was already up, walking among the pastures, checking fences, and making sure everything was in order. He had been thinking about the events of the previous day. The arrival of Emily and the two horses had shaken the routine he had relied on for so long. And yet, despite his skepticism, he couldn't deny the strange feeling of relief he felt knowing the horses had someone caring for them. Emily, meanwhile, had already started her morning chores. She moved quietly but with purpose, her hands steady as she brushed the horses and checked their hooves. The horses seemed calmer than ever, their trust in her growing by the hour. She hummed softly to herself, a tune that seemed to soothe not only the animals but the air around them. Jake watched from a distance, trying to understand how someone could appear out of nowhere and immediately earn the confidence of creatures that usually trusted only him. "Morning," he said finally, walking closer, his voice still cautious. "Good morning," Emily replied, looking up and smiling briefly. There was no hint of fear in her eyes, only focus and calm determination. "I watched you yesterday," Jake admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "I didn't expect you to handle the horses so well. You know a lot more than I thought." Emily tilted her head slightly. "I've worked with horses most of my life," she said simply. "They respond when you understand them, not just when you control them." Jake frowned slightly, thinking about her words. He had spent years training these animals, learning their habits, understanding their moods. And yet here was a stranger, barely a day on his land, earning their trust faster than he ever had. It was impressive and a little unsettling. "All right," he said finally, his tone softening. "I'm giving you a chance to prove yourself, but you need to follow my rules. This is my ranch and I can't risk anything happening to it." Emily nodded. "I understand. I'll follow your lead." The day began with work in the fields. Emily moved with quiet efficiency, guiding the horses as they helped carry small loads of hay. She had a natural way of moving alongside the animals, anticipating their reactions and keeping them calm. Jake watched her, noting every detail. He had to admit she was good, better than good. She had a gift, a way with the animals that even he hadn't mastered. Still, Jake's instincts told him to remain cautious. He couldn't fully trust her yet. People often surprised you in ways you didn't expect, and not always in a good way. He kept a close eye, ready to intervene if anything went wrong. But as the hours passed, nothing did. The horses were calm, the work was progressing smoothly, and Emily showed no sign of panic or error. By mid-morning, Jake decided to test her further. He led her to a part of the pasture where the terrain was rougher, with uneven ground and small hills. It was a challenging area for the horses, one that required skill and patience to navigate safely. "Let's see how you handle them here," he said, his tone even but firm. Emily nodded, adjusting the straps on the saddle and checking the horses one more time. She guided them slowly, speaking to them in soft tones, encouraging them without pressure. The horses followed her cues perfectly, stepping carefully over the uneven ground, their trust in her evident in every movement. Jake's brow furrowed as he watched. He had expected mistakes, hesitation, perhaps even accidents, but there were none. Emily moved with confidence, grace, and a clear understanding of the animals. She wasn't just keeping them safe. She was teaching them, guiding them, showing them that work could be calm and even enjoyable. The afternoon brought more challenges. A small group of the ranch hands arrived to check on the work. They had heard rumors about the stranger and were curious, even skeptical. Some of them whispered to each other, questioning why Jake would allow a young woman with no known background to handle the horses. "Are you sure about this, Jake?" one of them asked quietly. "She might be fine now, but what if something goes wrong?" Jake didn't answer immediately. He kept his eyes on Emily, watching as she led the horses to a small corral, securing them carefully and checking their saddles and reins. Every action was precise, thoughtful, and safe. "She's fine," he said finally, his voice calm but firm. "Watch her first, judge later." The ranch hands exchanged glances but stayed silent, their curiosity mixed with respect. Emily, aware of their presence, didn't falter. She continued her work with the same quiet focus, not seeking approval but showing competence through action. As the day progressed, Jake found himself learning something unexpected. He had always prided himself on his knowledge of horses and ranch work, but Emily was teaching him, in subtle ways, that there was always more to learn. She noticed small details he had missed, suggested ways to make the work easier and safer, and handled situations that he had assumed would be difficult with calm precision. By late afternoon, Jake could no longer deny that she had earned his respect. Not fully, not yet, but enough that he started to consider the possibility that she could be trusted. He approached her as she brushed down one of the horses, her hands moving with careful rhythm. "You've done well today," he said, his voice carrying a mixture of approval and curiosity. "I didn't expect this." Emily looked up, her expression calm and steady. "Thank you," she said simply. She didn't brag, didn't seek praise. She just continued her work, letting her actions speak for her. Jake felt a small smile tug at his lips, though he quickly suppressed it. He wasn't used to feeling impressed by anyone, especially someone who had appeared so suddenly and with no explanation. But the truth was undeniable. Emily had skill, patience, and courage, qualities that were rare in people and especially in strangers. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with deep oranges and purples, Jake called the horses back to their stalls. Emily guided them gently, speaking softly to calm them after a long day. She led them without rushing, making sure each animal was settled comfortably. Jake watched her, a sense of admiration growing quietly within him. She had arrived unexpectedly without warning, yet she had proven herself in a single day. The horses were calmer, the work had gone smoothly, and she had handled every challenge without complaint. And yet, Jake knew this was only the beginning. He had seen her abilities, yes, but the ranch would face bigger challenges. storms, injuries, and unexpected problems that could arise at any moment. He needed to know if she could handle more than just a calm day in the fields. That evening, as Emily prepared to rest near the horses she had cared for, Jake approached her once more. "Tomorrow, I'll put you to the real test," he said, his tone firm but not unkind. "You've done well today, but I need to see how you handle the unexpected. Life on this ranch isn't always easy, and the work can get dangerous." Emily nodded, her eyes calm but alert. "I'm ready," she said simply. Jake studied her for a moment longer, feeling a strange mix of caution and hope. He had never trusted someone so quickly, and yet there was something in Emily that demanded it. Perhaps it was her calm confidence, her skill with the horses, or the quiet determination that shone through every action. Whatever it was, he knew he couldn't ignore it. As night fell, the ranch grew quiet. The horses slept peacefully in their stalls, Emily rested nearby, and Jake stayed on the porch, thinking about what the next day would bring. He had faced many challenges in his life, but he had never faced one quite like this. A stranger had appeared suddenly, with no explanation, and yet she had already begun to change the rhythm of his days. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the faint smell of hay and earth. The stars shone brightly in the clear night sky, and for the first time in a long while, Jake felt a small sense of anticipation. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew it would be a day that tested both him and Emily in ways he could not yet imagine. And somewhere deep inside, Emily felt it too. She had been thrown into a life she did not know, with challenges she had not expected. But she also felt a spark of determination. These horses, this ranch, this man, they needed her, and she was ready to rise to the task. As the night grew darker, the quiet calm of the ranch held a promise of challenges, growth, and a bond that would grow stronger with each passing day. The first tests were over, but the true trials were only beginning. And when they came, both Jake and Emily would discover just how much courage, skill, and trust it would take to survive, and to protect everything they held dear. The morning air was heavy with the smell of rain. Dark clouds rolled across the horizon, and the wind whispered warnings through the tall grass. Jake had been watching the skies for days, knowing that storms could come quickly and fiercely in this part of the country. He had spent years preparing the ranch for emergencies, but even the most careful planning could be tested when nature turned fierce. Emily was already outside, tending to the horses. She moved with the same calm and confidence she always had, brushing their coats, checking their hooves, and whispering soft words of encouragement. The horses were restless, sensing the shift in the weather, but she guided them carefully, keeping them calm. Jake approached her, his brow furrowed with concern. "The storm's coming faster than I expected," he said. "We need to get the horses safe and secure before it hits." Emily looked up at him calmly. "We can do it," she said. "I've handled animals in bad weather before. They'll be fine if we stay calm and move carefully." Jake nodded, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. He had learned to trust his instincts, but he was learning slowly that he could also trust Emily. Not completely yet, but enough to know she could handle this. They worked quickly but carefully. Emily guided the horses to a small, sheltered area of the pasture, away from trees that could fall and rocks that could be dangerous in the wind. Jake followed, securing fences and checking that gates were closed. The storm was approaching faster than he had hoped, and the clouds grew darker, almost black, blotting out the sun. Suddenly, a loud crack of thunder echoed across the plains, startling the horses. They bolted in different directions, panic flashing in their eyes. Jake's heart raced. He had trained them for emergencies before, but the combination of fear and unfamiliarity made them unpredictable. "Stay calm," Emily shouted, moving quickly between the horses. Her voice was firm but soothing. "Easy, easy, I've got you." She ran toward one of the panicked horses, moving with a skill and confidence that amazed Jake. She caught its halter, speaking softly, guiding it back to the shelter. The horse responded, lowering its head and following her calmly. Jake moved to help another, but she waved him back, handling the situation herself. The storm grew closer. Rain began to fall in heavy sheets, drenching them within minutes. Lightning flashed across the sky, and the roar of thunder shook the ground. Jake felt a surge of fear. This could damage the fences, the barns, or worse, injure the horses. But Emily moved through the rain as if it were nothing, guiding, calming, and securing the animals with steady hands and clear commands. One of the younger horses panicked, bolting toward the fence. Jake's heart leaped. If it broke the fence, it could escape into the open plains where it might get lost or hurt. Emily was already moving toward it, running through the rain without hesitation. She reached the horse just in time, slipping the lead around its neck and guiding it back to safety. Jake watched in awe, feeling a mix of fear, relief, and growing admiration. By the time the storm hit in full force, all the horses were safe in the sheltered area. Emily stayed with them, making sure they were calm, while Jake worked on securing gates and checking fences. The wind howled, the rain pounded the earth, and lightning lit the sky like fire, but the ranch held together. As they worked, Jake realized something he had never expected. Emily wasn't just helping with the horses, she was saving them. She had taken charge, shown courage, and acted decisively in a situation that could have caused serious harm. Without her, he might have lost one or all of the horses. The thought made his chest tighten. The storm lasted for hours. Rain turned the dirt into slippery mud, and strong winds bent trees almost to breaking. Jake and Emily moved together, silently coordinating, anticipating each other's actions. Their trust had grown in just a single day, but in the storm it deepened further. They communicated without words, each understanding the other's intentions. Finally, as evening approached, the storm began to subside. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and the wind eased into gentle gusts. The ranch was soaked and muddy, but the horses were safe, calm, and unharmed. Jake wiped the rain from his face and took a deep breath, feeling the tension of the day slowly release. He looked at Emily, standing with the horses, her clothes drenched, her hair plastered to her face, but her expression calm and proud. He realized then that she had not just helped, they had survived together. And in that survival, a bond had been formed that was stronger than anything he had expected. "Emily," he said, his voice quiet but full of emotion. I don't know what I would have done without you today." Emily looked at him, her eyes steady. "We did it together," she said softly. "I couldn't have done it alone, and neither could you." Jake nodded, realizing the truth in her words. He had always been a man who worked alone, who trusted few people, but Emily had shown him something important. Sometimes, trusting someone else could save everything you cared about. As the night settled in, Jake and Emily walked through the pasture, checking on the horses one last time. The mud clung to their boots and the air smelled of wet earth and grass. The horses were calm, grazing quietly, their trust in Emily evident in every movement. Jake felt a strange sense of pride, not only in the ranch that had survived the storm, but in the woman who had proven herself so capable and brave. That night, they sat together on the porch, watching the last of the storm clouds drift across the sky. The ranch was safe, the horses were unharmed, and the air was filled with the quiet satisfaction of a hard day's work. For the first time, Jake allowed himself to relax, knowing that he had found someone who could handle challenges he could not face alone. Emily, too, felt a sense of relief. She had arrived unexpectedly, unsure of what she could do, and yet she had proven herself in a situation that tested every skill she possessed. The storm had been dangerous, unpredictable, and frightening, but she had risen to the challenge. She realized that this ranch, these horses, and this man had become important to her. She had found a purpose, a place where her skills mattered and where she could make a difference. As they sat together watching the stars appear one by one in the clearing sky, Jake finally spoke again. "You saved them. You saved everything I have." Emily smiled quietly. "We saved it together," she said. "And we'll keep saving it as long as we stay careful and work together." Jake nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. He felt a deep sense of gratitude and respect. He had expected a stranger to be a problem, someone who might cause damage or trouble. Instead, he had found a partner, someone who had courage, skill, and a heart that cared for the ranch as much as he did. The storm had tested them both, and they had passed, but Jake knew the work was not done. Life on the ranch was full of challenges. Storms, accidents, and unexpected events could come at any time. Yet, for the first time, he felt a sense of hope. With Emily by his side, he believed that they could handle whatever came next. As the night deepened, they checked the horses one last time and made sure the gates were secure. The ranch was quiet now, peaceful and calm, the chaos of the storm replaced by a gentle stillness. Jake and Emily stood side by side, looking out over the pasture, feeling the bond that had grown between them. Tomorrow, the ranch would need them again. There would be new challenges, new tests of skill and courage. But for tonight, they had survived. For tonight, they had proven that trust, determination, and teamwork could overcome even the fiercest storm. And somewhere deep inside, both Jake and Emily knew that this was only the beginning. The storm had revealed not only their strengths, but also their potential as a team. They had faced fear, uncertainty, and danger together, and they had come out stronger. The ranch, the horses, and their bond had survived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The stars shone brightly overhead, the rain-soaked earth smelled of freshness and life, and the quiet of the night carried the promise of new beginnings. Emily knew she had found a place where she mattered. Jake knew he had found someone he could trust. And together they were ready for whatever challenges the next day might bring. The morning sun rose gently over the ranch, glimmering off the dew-soaked grass. After the storm from the previous day, everything seemed cleaner, fresher, and alive. Birds chirped in the trees, the horses grazed peacefully, and the wind carried the earthy scent of wet soil and hay. Jake walked through the pasture, his boots sinking slightly into the damp ground, and he felt a quiet sense of relief. The storm had tested the ranch, and they had survived. Emily was already outside, moving among the horses with the calm confidence that had impressed Jake from the start. She checked their hooves carefully, adjusted the blankets that had been drenched in the rain, and spoke softly to the animals. The horses responded immediately, calm and trusting. Jake approached her, a small smile on his face. "Looks like everyone made it through the storm just fine," he said. Emily nodded. "They did," she replied, "thanks to your preparation and a little teamwork." Jake chuckled quietly, shaking his head. "You deserve most of the credit. I didn't think any of us would make it through that storm without losing something or someone." Emily's eyes met his, steady and calm, but with a glint of pride. "I couldn't let anything happen, not when I could help." The events of the storm had shifted something in both of them. Jake, once skeptical and cautious, had grown to respect Emily not just for her skill, but for her courage, determination, and calm presence under pressure. Emily, who had arrived unexpectedly, had found a place where her abilities mattered, where she could make a real difference. Together, they had faced a challenge that could have destroyed the ranch and the animals they both cared for deeply. As they worked through the morning, Jake and Emily began tackling other tasks. Fences had been weakened by the storm, and some gates needed repairs. Equipment had been damaged, and the barn roof had minor leaks. The work was exhausting, but with both of them moving efficiently and coordinating without hesitation, progress came quickly. At one point, Jake paused to watch Emily guide the horses into the newly repaired corral. She moved among them with calm authority, adjusting halters, checking reins, and making sure each animal was secure. The horses trusted her completely, following her every instruction without hesitation. Jake realized he had never seen such a connection between a person and animals before. It was as if she could understand them, almost speak to them without words. "You've done more in these past few days than anyone else I know could have," Jake said quietly, walking up to her. I don't know how to thank you properly." Emily shook her head. "You don't need to thank me. We're a team now. That's enough." Jake felt a lump in his throat. He had always been self-reliant, proud of his ability to handle challenges alone. But now he understood that some challenges were too big for one person. Trust and partnership mattered, and Emily had shown him that. By midday, the ranch was in order. The fences were secure, the gates repaired, and the horses calm and fed. Even the small barn leaks had been patched, and the damaged equipment temporarily fixed. Jake looked around, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and relief. The ranch had survived not just because of preparation, but because of Emily's skill, courage, and quick thinking. As they took a brief rest, sitting on the porch with water bottles in hand, Jake spoke again. "I've been through a lot of storms in my life. I've faced wildfires, floods, and rough winters, but nothing has tested me like this one did. And I wouldn't have made it without you." Emily smiled faintly. "You would have found a way, you always do, I just helped." Jake shook his head. "No, you did more than help. You saved the ranch. You saved my livelihood. You saved everything I've worked for. And I want you to know I see that. I won't forget it." There was a quiet moment between them, the kind of moment that comes after shared trials and danger. They didn't need to speak to understand what had passed between them, the trust, the respect, and the bond that had grown. As afternoon came, Jake realized there were more challenges ahead. Supplies needed restocking, and the storm had damaged some of the irrigation channels. But he also realized that with Emily by his side, he could face anything. Her presence gave him confidence, her skill gave him reassurance, and her calm courage reminded him that he wasn't alone anymore. They spent the rest of the day working together. Emily guided the horses, helped repair fences, and even offered suggestions for better drainage to prevent future storm damage. Jake implemented her ideas, realizing how smart and practical they were. Their teamwork was seamless, almost instinctive, built on trust earned through the storm. As the sun began to set, casting golden light over the wet pasture, Jake and Emily stood side by side, watching the horses graze. The ranch was peaceful, the air filled with the scent of grass and earth and the quiet hum of life returning after a storm. Jake felt a deep sense of relief and satisfaction. The ranch had been tested, and it had survived. But more importantly, he had found someone who mattered, someone he could trust completely, someone who had proven their courage, intelligence, and heart. Emily had become more than a helper or a guest. She had become part of the ranch, part of the life he had fought to preserve. Emily, too, felt a sense of fulfillment. She had arrived unexpectedly, unsure of her place, and yet she had proven herself in ways that mattered. She had saved the horses, helped secure the ranch, and earned Jake's trust. She had found a purpose, a place where her skills and heart made a real difference. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly valued and connected. As night fell, Jake lit a small lantern on the porch, and they sat together in quiet companionship. The stars were bright in the clear sky, reflecting in the calm eyes of the horses nearby. They didn't need to speak much. The bond they had formed over shared work, trust, and courage was enough. "You know," Jake said finally, his voice soft, "I've always thought I could do everything alone, but now I don't think I want to anymore. You've shown me that some things are bigger than one person, and I'm glad you're here." Emily smiled, her eyes reflecting the stars. "I'm glad, too. I didn't know where I belonged before, but now I do. Here with the ranch, the horses, and you." Jake nodded, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He realized that the storms, the danger, and the uncertainty had brought them together for a reason. The ranch was safe, the horses were thriving, and they had both grown stronger because of the challenges they faced together. The night grew darker, the lantern casting a warm glow across the porch, and the wind whispered gently through the trees. The quiet was comforting, a reminder that even after storms, life continued, and challenges could be met with courage and teamwork. Before turning in, Jake checked the horses one last time. They were calm, secure, and peaceful. Emily helped him, moving silently among the animals, her presence steadying him. They shared a quiet look, an unspoken acknowledgement that they had overcome something remarkable together. As they finally headed inside, Jake realized that the arrival of Emily, unexpected, mysterious, and unplanned, had changed everything. She had saved the ranch, saved the horses, and in a way had saved him from isolation and self-reliance that had kept him from trusting anyone. He felt gratitude, respect, and a quiet admiration that grew stronger with every passing day. Emily, walking beside him, felt the same. She had faced a storm, both literally and figuratively, and had emerged not only unscathed but respected and valued. She had found a place where her skills mattered, where her heart mattered, and where she was no longer just a stranger on the ranch. She was a part of it, a part of Jake's life, and a part of the story that had begun the day she appeared with the two horses. That night, as the ranch lay quiet under the blanket of stars, both of them understood that life would continue to bring challenges. There would be storms, work, and unexpected events, but they also knew that together they could face anything. They had learned to trust, to act with courage, and to rely on each other. And in that trust and partnership, they had found something more valuable than anything else, the knowledge that they were not alone. The horses slept peacefully in their stalls, the wind rustled gently through the trees, and the ranch stood strong, a testament to hard work, courage, and unexpected teamwork. Jake and Emily, sitting on the porch, looked out over the fields, the setting sun casting warm light over the land they had saved together. For both of them, the journey had changed everything. They had faced danger, uncertainty, and fear. They had proven their strength, skill, and heart. And most importantly, they had found in each other a partner they could trust, someone who had come unexpectedly and yet had become essential to their life, their work, and their future. And so, as night fully settled over the ranch, there was peace, quiet, and a sense of accomplishment. The storm had passed. The horses were safe. The ranch was secure, and two people brought together by chance had discovered the power of trust, courage, and partnership. The ranch had been saved. The horses had been saved. And in a way, both Jake and Emily had been saved too, saved from isolation, uncertainty, and the limitations of doing life alone. Together, they faced the future, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever challenges the next day might bring. The stars shone brightly above, reflecting in the calm eyes of the horses and the quiet hearts of the two people who had learned that life's true strength comes from courage, skill, and the trust shared between those who care for each other.